It's just after 6:30 in the morning when a jogger spots something by the water that doesn't look right. She's on her usual route along the River Ouse, a path she's run hundreds of times before. It's mid-March, cold, with that thin fog that rolls in from the moors and hangs low over the water. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, and everything feels still, the kind of quiet that belongs to small cities before they wake up. She sees what she thinks is a sleeping bag or maybe a pile of clothes caught against the reeds. But as she slows down, her stomach twists. Because it's not clothes. It's a person. The jogger freezes. She stands there for several seconds, trying to make sense of what she's looking at. A woman's body, half submerged in the shallows, one arm visible, skin pale against the dark water. Her long hair spreads out like ink. The jogger's first instinct is to call for help, but her hands are shaking so badly that she drops her phone twice before she manages to dial. Her voice, when she finally speaks to the dispatcher, is barely above a whisper. Within minutes, the quiet banks of the River Ouse explode into activity. Patrol cars, flashing blue lights, uniformed officers pushing through the mud and reeds. The scene looks like chaos, but to Detective Inspector Sarah Keene, it's all method. She's been with North Yorkshire Police for over a decade, seen her fair share of terrible things, but something about this one. It doesn't feel like an accident. The body belongs to Emily Wren, 29 years old. She's a secondary school art teacher in York. Beloved, respected, one of those teachers who actually makes kids want to come to class. And as the news spreads through the city that morning, people can't believe it. Emily? No. Not her. At first, police think it might have been a tragic fall, someone walking home late, slipping into the river, maybe hitting her head. But the postmortem later that day tells a different story. Emily's lungs are clear. No water. Meaning she didn't drown. She was dead before she hit the water. And that's when this story shifts, from a tragedy, to something darker. To understand what happened to Emily, you have to understand who she was. Born and raised in Leeds, she'd moved to York 5 years earlier for her teaching job. She was creative, warm, the kind of person who filled her home with paintings, plants, and thrift shop finds. Her colleagues said she was bubbly, a little scatterbrained sometimes, but dedicated. She had a partner, Tom Bennett, a quiet, steady guy who worked in IT for the city council. The two of them had been together for 6 years, living in a small second-floor flat near Micklegate Bar, one of those old stone arches that still mark the city's medieval gates. From the outside, they looked solid. Normal. But that night, the night Emily disappeared, there'd been tension. On March 14th, Emily went out for dinner with friends to celebrate a colleague's birthday at a pub called the King's Arms, right on the riverside. She arrived around 7 p.m., cheerful, joking, ordering a round of ciders for the table. By 9:30, though, her mood had shifted. Her friend Claire Dalton would later tell police that Emily got a text during dinner that seemed to upset her. When Claire asked what was wrong, Emily brushed it off. She said it was just Tom. They'd been arguing about her potential move to London. Emily had recently been offered a spot in an art fellowship, something she'd wanted for years. It was prestigious, career-changing. But it meant moving to London for at least a year. Tom didn't want to go. He told her he didn't like London, too big, too expensive, too far from family. She told him this was her dream, that she couldn't just give it up. That tension had been simmering for weeks. So when Emily left the pub around 9:45, she told her friends she needed to clear her head. She lived only about 10 minutes away, an easy walk through the narrow cobbled streets, across the bridge, and home. But somehow, her body ended up 4 miles away. Tom Bennett answers the door when detectives arrive the next morning. He looks like someone who hasn't slept, pale, glassy-eyed. He says he thought Emily had stayed over at a friend's. He claims they'd argued earlier that evening and that he stayed home, watching a football match, then went to bed around midnight. When asked what time he last contacted her, Tom says he sent her a text at 1 a.m., just to check if she was okay. But when Detective Keene requests his phone records, there's no message sent at that time. The first text from him to Emily was at 7:12 a.m., after her body had already been found. When confronted, Tom insists there must have been an error. "Maybe I forgot to hit send," he says. But Keene's gut tells her that's not the case. Something's off. Then comes the CCTV footage. At 9:47 p.m., cameras show Emily leaving the King's Arms and walking alone down Fossgate, purse over her shoulder, scarf wrapped tight. At 9:49, she passes a corner shop. At 9:55, she crosses Stonebow Road, heading east, and just at the edge of frame, a tall man in a dark jacket appears behind her. His face is obscured, caught by the glare of a passing car's headlights. He follows her for maybe 10 seconds. Then they both disappear from view. That's the last known sighting of Emily alive. Detectives begin a massive search effort along the river and surrounding neighborhoods. Divers scour the ooze. Volunteers hand out flyers. A week later, a team finds Emily's phone in the mud, about a mile downstream from where her body was discovered. The screen is cracked, waterlogged. No usable data. Her purse and keys are still missing. Then, 3 weeks later, a retired couple living on the outskirts of the city finds something caught on their back fence, a pale blue scarf. It's Emily's. And that fence backs onto a narrow alleyway behind Tom Bennett's office building. Detectives bring Tom in again. He looks worn down. Says he's already told them everything. But they press him about the scarf. He insists he doesn't know how it got there. He walks that area sometimes on lunch breaks, sure, but he'd never noticed it before. Keene studies him as he talks, the way his eyes dart toward the floor when he's asked direct questions. It's not proof, but it's something. Still, the forensic evidence doesn't stick. No DNA, no fingerprints, nothing solid. The case starts to stall. Weeks turn into months. Emily's family, her mother, her younger brother Daniel, attend every press conference, begging for leads. Her school holds a memorial service, students paint a mural in her honor. York changes in subtle ways. People double lock doors. The pubs close earlier. Women stop walking home alone. And the story, dubbed by tabloids as the River Wren case, becomes a local obsession. Rumors spread that Tom killed her in a jealous rage. That a stranger targeted her. That she ran away and it was staged. Detective Keene hates rumors. They make people stop listening to facts. But even she can't ignore how unusual this case is. Because nothing about Emily's last hours makes sense. Why did she end up on the opposite side of the city? Why were there no screams, no witnesses, no signs of struggle where she was found? Then, in late April, something surfaces, literally. A construction crew dredging a stretch of the river near Fulford pulls up a black handbag. Inside, Emily's wallet, her ID, lip balm, and a small receipt from a corner shop. Timestamp, 10:02 p.m., March 14th. The shop is 2 miles east of the pub, completely opposite direction from home. That changes everything. Detectives visit the shop owner, who remembers a young woman matching Emily's description that night. He says she seemed a bit jumpy, checking the door repeatedly. She bought a bottle of water and a pack of mints. Then she left. Outside, CCTV cameras caught a silver Vauxhall Astra parked across the street around that same time. When police trace registration records for similar cars in the area, one name stands out: Mark Davison, a 34-year-old IT specialist. He works in the same department as Tom Bennett. When police question Tom, he admits he knows Mark, says they're work acquaintances, not close friends. Mark, when questioned, says the same about Tom. He admits he knew Emily but insists it was only through work events. When asked where he was that night, Mark says he was home watching the match. But there's a problem. There was no televised match that evening. Detectives get a warrant for Mark's car. They find faint traces of blood in the boot, degraded, but matching Emily's blood type. They also find small fibers consistent with her coat. When confronted, Mark changes his story. He says Emily called him that night, upset after her argument with Tom. She asked him for a lift. He picked her up near the pub, drove her around for a bit, and dropped her by the river when she said she wanted to walk and clear her head. But when police check both of their phone records, there's no call. No texts. No evidence they spoke that night at all. Detective Keene can feel the case tightening, but she still needs something solid, something irrefutable. That's when a cyclist comes forward. He'd been riding home along Stonebow around 10:10 that night. His bike had a dashcam that automatically records his route. He says he didn't notice anything strange at the time, but after seeing the news, he decided to review the footage. And there, just for a few seconds, is a silver car parked by the curb with its headlights off. A man stands beside it, talking to a woman wearing a pale scarf. Then, a sudden movement, her hand raised, maybe in defense. The image blurs. The footage cuts out. But when forensics enhance the plate, they can make out most of the number. It matches Mark Davison's Vauxhall Astra. Mark is arrested. During the trial, prosecutors lay out their theory. Emily left the pub upset, contacted Mark for a ride. Maybe she trusted him, maybe she just didn't want to go home to Tom. Somewhere along that route, things turned violent. Mark, they argue, killed her, whether by accident or intent, then dumped her body in the river to make it look like a drowning. Mark pleads not guilty. But when an ex-girlfriend testifies that he once confessed to hurting someone and regretting it, the jury doesn't need much more. He's sentenced to life imprisonment. For most people, that would be the end. Case closed. Justice served. But for Detective Keene, something still doesn't fit. That 10:02 receipt. It places Emily at a shop 2 miles east. But when they later reanalyzed her phone data, what little they could recover, her GPS pinged briefly near a small bridge north of the city, minutes later. That's impossible unless someone else was driving her. And the data shows a second phone, unknown, nearby for several minutes before both signals vanish. When Keene checks who that second phone belonged to, the number is unregistered. Disposable. She tries to follow the lead, but it goes cold. Maybe it was just noise, a fluke. But part of her doesn't believe that. Because in her gut, she feels that Mark didn't act alone. Years pass. York slowly returns to normal, though normal never feels quite the same. Emily's mural still stands in the school hallway. Her mother still visits the riverbank every March, leaving fresh flowers in the reeds. Tom Bennett moved away quietly after the trial. He never attended the hearings, saying he couldn't bear it. Rumors linger, that he knew more than he said. That Emily had been planning to leave him, not just for London, but for someone else. Detective Keene sometimes drives past the river on her way home, watching the current move beneath the old bridges. She knows the file is closed. But she also knows some stories never really end, not when you can still feel the questions they left behind. Because if Emily really did get into that car willingly, then somewhere, somehow, she trusted the wrong person. And in a city like York, with its twisting lanes, its centuries of ghosts, the line between trust and danger can be as thin as the fog rolling over the water. Even now, locals say they sometimes see something near the ooze at night, a faint flicker of blue against the dark. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just a trick of light, the wind catching on a scrap of fabric. But every time Detective Keene hears those stories, she feels that same cold weight in her chest. Because she knows how rivers work. They don't forget. They carry things, pieces of what's lost, what's hidden, long after the rest of us move on. And sometimes, if you're quiet enough, you can still hear what they're trying to say.